Welcome to Friday Friends, RI Elder Info's weekly look at the organizations and individuals providing resources for Rhode Island seniors, caregivers, and professionals.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It is 9 o'clock on Friday, and you are joining me, Deb Burton, Executive Director of RI Elder Info, for our weekly conversation with amazing people, our show Friday Friends. Now, as you all know, RI Elder Info is a 501c3 nonprofit, so we could not do this show without the support of our sponsors and our donors and people like you who are making this happen for others. So a huge thank you to Point 32 Health Foundation, Neighborhood Healthcare, Oak Street Health, 321 Media, and a special shout out to McCarthy Law. Here's a message from McCarthy Law.
Here at McCarthy Law, we practice in the areas of estate planning, long-term care planning, elder care law, and residential real estate. Our focus is really on providing peace of mind to our clients.
If you're interested in scheduling a consultation with our office, you can feel free to reach out to us at 401-541-5540. You can also reach out via website at www.mccarthylawri.com. You also should check out our social media, both on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for some helpful tips and tricks.
Welcome, Meg from the Valkyrie Project. How are you?
I'm doing well, Deb. How are you?
Awesome. So when I was getting ready to put together our Calling All Women Warriors event, everybody said, you've got to reach out to the Valkyrie Project, see if they can participate. And I learned that you guys are also having an event, but you're doing really amazing stuff. So will you share with everybody what the Valkyrie Project is?
Sure. The Valkyrie Project is a 501c3 nonprofit that is dedicated to the advancement of American servicewomen, professional advancement. And we had an origin. I'll give you a little bit of an origin story just to give the background. But I was in Army Special Operations, probably starting special operations about 7 years ago, and noticed that in this male dominated environment, there weren't a lot of resources for fitness and for support for women, because the organization was built primarily to support their main service member, which was a male target audience. And so I was looking for some workout programming so that I could literally stay in the appropriate shape to not only lead my men that I was in charge of, but lead them from the front. And I wanted to improve my fitness so that I had that level of credibility with, my counterparts and my subordinates. And so I started VP as an LLC initially. I was a longtime CrossFit athlete and fitness coach. And so I started writing workouts for women to basically pay to have a membership online so that they could access workout programming that was intuitive for them, and that was specifically tailored around women's physiology and biological rhythms. And to this day, VP's workouts are written around a woman's natural cycle, essentially. But then as time went on, I met some women that were very like-minded working in this space, trying to open up resources for women in service that would make their experience more equitable. And as an example of that, I met Catherine Basso of Cadre Clothing, whose primary point of passion is gear and apparel. And, we had several discussions about how it's inappropriate that women are expected to deploy to combat zones wearing MOS gear that is too big for them or doesn't fit properly, and safety apparel that doesn't properly protect us, whether it be, a vest, because women have breast tissue and that creates a difference in the way, right? Shocking. It creates a difference in the way that the vest that's made for a man is able to protect you, especially from shrapnel and things from the side. And And so, there were issues related to gear and apparel. I met up with another lady who's currently on our board, Candace Esquivel, who worked in the Office of Women's Policy for the Navy. And we talked about all of the policy gaps that still exist that disproportionately either overlook women professionally or create unnecessary barriers to their success and policy barriers that their male counterparts wouldn't have to face. So with all these things, we came together and said, we should have a symposium, and VP can be doing so much more. So let's click over to a 501c3. So around the time that we were planning our first symposium in 23, we applied for 501c3 status. And then once we got it, I built a board of directors. And we are still very much in our nascent phases, but we've got a big board of directors now. Even though we're all working board members, we don't quite have the funds to hire people yet, but that'll be happening soon, knock on wood. So we're excited to now be planning our third annual Military Women's Symposium, which will be 6 and 7 March in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Navy Memorial. And we were really lucky to host the symposium at MIT Lincoln Laboratory last year. Unfortunately, they spent lots of money helping us and hosting us. And so that resource has run a bit dry. So we're back to the fundraising and all of that again this year. But it's working out beautifully, and we're really excited to host the event again. One final note, I know I've been talking for a while, Deb, but for everyone's awareness, some of the projects that and efforts that we've expanded on since becoming a 501c3s, we're still continuing to offer workout programming monthly that's intuitive for women, that is below market cost. We do need that income to help cover our expenses, but we do still offer the workout programming. We've been working in the advocacy space. We wrote a paper titled Critical Research Topics for the Advancement of Women Warfighters. In that paper, we briefed to a congressional caucus in November of last year. So we're still working the advocacy front. We've been working with U.S. and allied nation combat arms and special operations forces units to essentially coach them through how to better and intuitively integrate women into those particularly inaccessible jobs like Tier 1 special operations and whatnot. We've been kicking off some research efforts because, as we know, generally women's research on healthcare across the board is less of an abundant resource than that on males, and in the military even more so, especially on female tactical athletes and how they function in combat zones, and their differences in sleep, nutrition, and human health and performance support processes. So we're working in that space as well. We have our hands in a lot of pots right now.
Well, I feel like this is something women in the military has become covered a lot in the media recently, and whether or not it is or isn't appropriate for women to be able to serve in those frontline roles. And so when you're saying that you're educating congressional delegates, things like that, are you finding that once they have the information that, yes, women are valuable assets in our military and can serve particular functions that male counterparts just can't do, are you finding individuals receptive? Is it like a media coverage, and in reality it is something that women are actually accepted in the military?
The majority of my experience has been anyone who has served with women, especially in those arduous roles like combat arms and special operations, have no question about our capability or potential to excel in those environments. In some cases, it's based on just being women, gives us access to different people and gives us an opportunity to use different interpersonal skills to achieve the same mission just through a different approach than what a male might take. And so there's generally no question from people who have experience deployed with competent women, which is the vast majority of the time that is the case. The pushback I tend to see is from folks that either didn't spend very long in service, or they were in service at a time where women were much less visible and much less active, especially in combat arms and special operations roles. They're more in support roles. And so this, for some people, especially for, my personal opinion, not meaning to cause any offense, but men that tend to have a bit of a lower personal self-esteem or some insecurity around their identity tend to project that insecurity by saying, women should be my mom, my girlfriend, or my sister, not in these roles. And I think there's also this concept in psychology where people who have something special tend to feel that that special thing is less special if more people have access to it. As an example, if I could afford a Lamborghini and I drove a Lamborghini around, there's a good chance that I would feel less special if everyone could afford a Lamborghini and they were as common as Toyotas. And so this is what I think that we're dealing with when we do get pushback about women being in all jobs and roles, is your being here as a woman somehow diminishes my personal accomplishment. And so that's something that only that individual can process and work through emotionally on their own, because women continue to do good things, deployed and at home.
And are you finding that the conversations around women serving in the military, because the reality is women have served in the military from the very beginning of this country. And I think visibility has been a huge factor. Are you finding the spotlight about women in military roles and whether or not the lethality level, are you finding those conversations are increasing the visibility of the work that the Valkyrie Project is doing? Or do you feel like it is pulling away from, because it's focused on, Valkyrie Project is focused on our women military members?
I haven't perceived, in the short time that some of these narratives have been amplified, I haven't perceived a pullback from anyone's support. I think that if not anything else, there's potentially more traffic and interest on its way to VP based on perhaps a perception of lack of support for certain ideas elsewhere. I have experience and interaction with some entities like, EO programs and DEI programs, and from my time in service, and whether or not, they were completely effective in their mission is independent to each of those units. So as a person who never worked in those offices, I can't say, well, they were of value or they weren't. And I think just like anything else, you need some nuance. Some offices probably did a lot of great things and some offices probably not so much. But if I had to most strongly relate us to, a formalized military unit, we would most resemble the women's initiatives teams, which is, in many cases, they were also disbanded as of a couple weeks ago, but they made the most progress in researching the disproportionately higher barriers for women than men. And they work to create some equity in those spaces and say, hey, women don't want special treatment. They don't want to be seen as other than. They want to be seen as part of the community. But when you look at this from the simple aspect of, do they have the same stuff to get the job done? Do they have, the same policy support? Often the answer is no. And so we've had a lot of folks that used to work in women's initiatives teams, coming out to saying they want to participate in the symposium. And we're looking forward to hosting those people, because there's a lot of a lot of folks that feel kind of dejected by what's happened right now. And, I won't share my political leanings either way, but the good thing about being a 501c3 that is not officially affiliated with the DoD means we can continue on discussing the things that are important to us, and we can speak hard truths without any retribution. And so we're really looking forward to driving on.
And I think sometimes the hard truth is just that, and it can be sometimes a little scary to say it and speak truth to power. Absolutely. So with your symposium that's coming up, what were the dates again on that?
6 and 7 March.
Okay. And where is that located?
We're going to be at the U.S. Navy Memorial in Washington, D.C.
Okay. And will any part of it be online? Can people watch it?
Yes, there will actually be there is a live stream option for registration on our website. If you go to our site and click symposium, there are several registration options, but included in there is a registration for a live stream.
Okay. So then people can get that information by hitting register, and your symposium is right across the top of your website. And with the 2 days, who are some of your speakers? What kind of things can people expect to learn from your symposium?
Well, we're covering several different topic areas, and under each topic will be 2 to 3 presenters doing a short TED Talk style presentation about their specific niche of research or policy or whatever it is. And then after those 2 to 3 discussions, there'll be a panel of 3 to 5 speakers, having a discussion related to that topic. So we've got a large breadth of folks from academia to industry to military to policy. But as an example, there's a fairly famous book called Athena Rising that was written by male service members who highlight the importance of being able to mentor female service members and meet women where they are in terms of their unique challenges that they face in service. And, they've been fairly celebrated because of that work and how important it's been. So we're happy to host Dr. David Smith of Athena Rising. We'll also be hosting Dr. Joan Johnson Fries, who's an international expert in women's peace and security. She's a Harvard professor. She's written several books and papers. Her CV is just silly, pages and pages long. But she'll be there moderating a panel, actually, which is very exciting. And we've also got a couple of researchers that maybe would be lesser known that have actually been looking at female tactical athletes' performance, which is something we're super interested in. So they're going to come present the findings of their research.
And as women veterans get older, are you finding that there are different challenges that they are experiencing? Or I'm sorry, as women military members get older, are you finding they're having different experiences as they're approaching retirement?
If I had to guess, I would say women in service and women veterans experience probably similar challenges to women on the civilian side, but it's magnified. And it's often magnified by the degree of stress that military women face because of the potential to be on a deployment cycle at any given time, the stressor of potentially being a mother while maintaining, an important and senior role within your organization, balancing the stress of, if they are in a male-dominated environment, essentially being a chameleon for years on end to adapt their personality and adapt their mannerisms and adapt themselves to thrive in an environment that maybe doesn't reflect their true essence. That's not the case for everyone. But for me, that was an example, and I've spoken with women that have that same struggle. And so I think it's more, I think the issues as an example, related to perimenopause, the sometimes decade and a half, 20-year long window before a woman has actual menopause, which is technically only one day. Perimenopause is a symptom that every woman with the appropriate equipment is going to experience at some point. And no one does well with brain fog and sleep disturbances and really distressing, sometimes body composition changes like weight gain, unwanted weight gain. And I think those things can feel amplified if you're in a more stressful job, which, maybe I'm biased because I did it for 15 years, but the military can be very stressful. And, going through those things while you're on a deployment, while you're potentially, if you're a senior leader in your unit and you're competing with males in the same age group, maybe you're 40, 46, 47, you're senior of rank, enlisted or officer, and your body is going through all this turmoil, and you're also trying to parent and, compete with other professionals in your environment. It's a lot for anyone. And I don't find it surprising that some of the research coming out of the VA highlights that women service members tend to experience higher instances of certain cancers and certain illnesses, because the body keeps the score. You can't live vibrantly after years and years of unmanaged acute stress that becomes chronic.
And do you think that those physiological differences are the kinds of things that some individuals are saying are the reason why women shouldn't serve?
I think there's a narrative that has been espoused in society that says, women are not as capable as men in the physical realm. And I think that narrative has been espoused from maybe antiquated ideas about what's possible. And, I think that the passage of time has started to completely defeat that narrative. And, statistically, mathematically, if we know for a fact that on average male bodies are bigger than women's bodies, then it's a logical statement to say men have, in general, the more potential than women if you're only looking at nothing but the statistics and one population vice another.
Right.
But in 2025, when I was a little girl, almost 40 years ago, little girls didn't play sports like rugby. They were rarely on soccer teams. Girls were only playing sports that would allow them to wear pretty things. Like they were doing cheer and dance and gymnastics, and that was it. And now little girls are playing all the sports. And we know from research that women and girls playing sports provide vectors for them to later serve and succeed well in corporate America and in the military. And also,
I have to say, I never thought of it that way. And I don't know that I ever really knew that, but that makes sense just even from a physical conditioning standpoint, that the younger women, younger girls are participating in very similar activities. So
yeah, and it's really important to have a baseline for sure. And I'll put my coaching hat on for a minute. A candidate that graduates high school that's been playing any kind of sport the entire time they're in high school and maybe before, that person is always going to be a more qualified and fit candidate for military service than a person who spent their whole high school playing video games. And that highlights something else I was going to point out about modern times. Many of the services have said in recent years that they're struggling to meet their recruitment goals because American people are less qualified to serve than ever in general because of a lack of physical fitness. And there's been an uptick in mental health problems, especially since COVID, and that creates some challenges. Like, hey, in the past, if you were diagnosed with ADHD, you could not join. And now waivers are just being written left and right. Policies are being lifted so we can fill the ranks. And ironically, amid this, what has been referred to as a recruitment crisis for probably over 5 years now, the Army Military Times published a couple weeks ago that the Army met its recruitment goals for the first time in years due to the fact that they recruited more women, because the women were better qualified based on their grades, based on their military aptitude test scores, based on their fitness. So the proof is in the pudding. And so the last thing I would say from an angle of the fitness aspect is, yes, based only on averages, men have more potential to be strong than women. But if you watch the Olympics and you watch things like the CrossFit Games, if you're watching, Simone Biles and Caitlin on the court, then that we are reaching ever higher like limitations to human potential, because women are participating in things more. And so for us, the conversation is not about a battle of the sexes, who is better for service, men or women. That question doesn't come into our conversation about what's important. For us, it's every able-bodied American should have the right to serve, and should have the right to serve with equitable resources, period.
I love that statement. So again, you guys are a 501c3 nonprofit. How can people support the work that you're doing, support your symposium, participate, get a hold of you, all of those things?
We always love and appreciate participation in the symposium, because we really do. That's where we generate the narrative and educate and inform populations of people that need this information. And it's just a great opportunity for, a lot of women already know a lot of the things that we talk about at the symposium, but they like to come anyway because it's a sense of community and it's fun. So everyone's invited. No one has to be an active service member. Anyone that's, willing to pay for an entry ticket can come. We do appreciate referrals for, as kind of a full disclosure statement, funding, and I'm sure you know this, Deb, funding a 501c3 that's brand new is a very difficult task. And so in particular, we've spent a lot of time in recent months applying for grants and things like that, but we're really in need of meeting members of the community, perhaps a retiree community that have the potential for corporate sponsorships, or maybe connected with people that know companies that are looking for people like us to contribute in their annual giving. And so I would ask, hey, for all you veterans, like, keep your eyes and ears open. If you know of someone that's looking to increase their charitable giving and they're looking for an organization that's doing something like what we're doing, we would really appreciate an introduction. But anyone at any time can just go to our website and donate. At the bottom of every tab on our website, if you scroll all the way down, donate now button, that's also helpful. Everybody at VP works for free, except for the couple of folks that we have to contract because we just don't have the bandwidth to do it all. And our most recent annual letter has just published, so that's available. And there's a pie chart in there that explains all of our financials, what we spend money on, what we're doing. So there's some good information in there as well. And I believe you've put it at the bottom of the screen, Deb, but we can also be found on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Our Facebook just didn't really take off. We've got some of the younger crowd on Instagram and the older crowd on LinkedIn. And somehow just Facebook never got as much interaction as we had hoped. So please find us on LinkedIn or Instagram, or you can just go to our website and click on the contact box. That's an easy way to reach out.
And I have to say, you responded right away. That was awesome.
And we're not a big company. Usually the first response within 5 minutes is me. And it's, I'm in the grocery store or at the gym, like.
But that's the beauty of having a nonprofit and being a founder, is that you're always on. That's part of the fun of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also spend lots of time in gym clothes because it's a thing when
Yes.
we can't get our own athletes to take pictures and videos of themselves, and it has to be me because, you gotta have content.
Absolutely, absolutely. I understand all of those pains. So it's March 6th and 7th. It's in DC, but if people can't travel to DC, there is an online viewing option that people can register for.
Correct.
Awesome. I think you're doing really amazing work, and I'm really glad that you were able to come on today. I know I told you like 15 minutes, and I've kept you double that.
It's all good.
Yeah,
I really appreciate the opportunity, Deb. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Everybody, this is an amazing program for our women's service members to participate in. So if you are active duty, if you are a veteran, check out the Valkyrie Project. They are doing some really amazing things. I don't hold it against them that their conference is the same day as our Calling All Women Warriors. But here's the fun thing. Our Calling All Women Warriors event on March 6th from 10 to 12, it's going to be recorded. So I'll still love you if you're watching the Valkyrie Project Symposium, because they're going to have some amazing information. And as much as I'd love to have your eyes on me and our project, the reality is ours is recorded so you can watch us anytime. So I am so glad that they were able to come on and share the work that they're doing. It's important conversations these days. So I am really glad you are all joined today. I look forward to seeing you next week. In the meantime, be well and be kind.
If you like this video, please follow us on social media and subscribe on YouTube. For more information, visit rielderinfo.com or call 401-585-0509. If you have any questions, email deb@rielderinfo.com.